Part 2 of the journey. We have already completed the install of the Ultimate 3.5 pound Ultimate Trigger Kit connector and trigger spring. What you see there is the factory trigger spring and connector. The Ghost Ink spring and connector has already been installed in the previous video, which was part 1 of this series. And at this point, we are now going to install the firing pin spring, reduced power. Down the bottom right corner there, you can see the small spring there, which is your reduced striker block spring. And that is the next phase in this journey. We're ready to go here. Let's see what we can do with this guy. So you just saw, this is what we're going to be installing. And as stated in the little cut just before this, we're working with the Generation 3 Glock 17 9mm handgun. Everything in this firearm was stock until we replaced, obviously, the connector and the trigger spring, as you see, the connector and trigger spring as you see here, with the above, which is upside down, with the Ghost Ultimate 3.5 pound Ultimate Trigger Kit connector and trigger spring. Now we're just working on, that basically makes us finished with the frame section, with the exception of an upcoming video where I'll be doing a very quick change out of the trigger and the trigger bar and crucible. But now we are focusing on the slide operations and seeing what this will actually do. This is an experiment in nature, folks, because you see a lot of videos on this, and just like I'm producing here, but I don't have any experience with how these actually feel. So just as a refresher, let's from our previous video, just as a refresher, let's just refresh where this trigger is sitting at. After installing the connector and the trigger spring, on the previous video, the average pull weight, which was just right around 6.5 pounds or just under on the stock overall, excuse me, had dropped to roughly an average, a 3-pull average of about 4.25 pounds. So you can see right here, there is, I'm hoping that's clear enough for you, there's my trigger scale. This is just a Lyman spring scale, and we are clear, so we can do this safely. So basically, I'm going to take this and put it in here. I do have my finger in the trigger well, and the reason why is because I've got to hold this trigger. I'm not putting any pressure on the trigger, so I'm not cheating that at all. It's just when you get here, it starts trying to roll up here, and it becomes a big mess. So I'm just putting it basically here, and I'm squeezing against the upper frame of the handgun here, and then that just holds that trigger in place, or excuse me, that trigger puller in place while I do the pull. Let's see where we're at here. Well, that one was really ugly. Hang on. I think I rolled that thing wrong here. There we go. And that one came out to, hard to tell, but what exactly is, but that one actually pulled out to about 4.75 pounds. So a little bit higher than what I was doing yesterday. And let's try another one here. That one lowered up quite a bit, and you can see where that one's sitting, and maybe that the firearm was just sitting there and I had to run it a couple times, but that one's sitting at just under 4.25 pounds. So let's do one more here real quick and just make sure it seems like we're halfway sitting at here. Get it on this trigger bar good, and pull it, bam, and again we are right at just a shade over 4.5, or just a shade right at just a touch over 4.5 pounds. So that puts us at about three pulls at somewhere around that 4.5 pound mark. Again, bear in mind, depending upon where this bar sits is going to determine the overall weight. So when we're still sitting at a 2 pound differential from yesterday's or excuse me, the other day's video segment where I changed out the connector. So we're still sitting at a 2-pound differential from the original 6.5 pounds. It's going to probably vary all the time because this is not a controlled environment. So I'm just basically using this, and you know, fat finger and things and so forth can obviously change where that sits on the trigger and can change those back and forth. So let's just say we're still, that right there average put us at about 4.5 pounds. So we're still at that 4.25 to 4.5 pound range. Very happy with that on an upgrade on just the connector spring. I mean, you still have a good wall, and man, that's just such a much better trigger than the stock factory trigger. Overall, the pull, excuse me, because this is still the stock factory trigger. Anyhow, all right, let's get started. And see if I can get my fat fingers to grab those springs. So this I'm just going to set aside because we're not working on this until we're finished. I'm just going to put it over here, and I'm going to start taking this guy apart here. So obviously, as you guys know, there's lots of videos out there. You pop the spring out, excuse me, the recoil spring guide, you pop out your barrel, and then we've got to get to the firing pin to get that out, and then we've also got to get to your striker pin block right here. So very simple to do. Essentially, we just get up underneath this firing pin or hammer catch here and grab that plastic piece. Let me see if I can get there. Squeeze it down and push forward. Of course, now that y'all are watching me do the video here, this is where I struggle with it. Nope, got it right there. Make sure when you're pulling this cap out, your firing pin is under spring tension, so when you pull this cap out the remainder of the way, cover that with your thumb so nothing pops out on you. Boom, got it out. That cap is done. Now you see the back, and the back is the firing pin sleeve that you see, as well as your extractor spring as well. So all we got to do is just grab this here, remove it. There's your striker firing pin, your striker sleeve, your spring cups right here on the front. All that has to be taken apart in order to make this work. So the other thing too is we're going to have to get to this guy here, and that's going to involve taking out the extractor. We'll get to that in a minute so we can minimize the parts laying in front of us. Let's do the actual striker spring first and see how difficult that is. This is all trial and error here for me because I haven't gone this far before. I want to make sure I don't lose that little guy there, that little spring. Make sure he stays inside there. So this kit comes with a 6-pound and a 4-pound spring. All right, this is both of the springs here. I need to get these apart. So I'm going to stop the video right quick and then get these guys apart, because this is actually 2 springs that need to come apart so I can determine which is which. So I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. So I got these springs apart, and Ghost Ink, not sure, the springs came apart okay, but they were a little twisted together. So I don't know if there's a better process for packing down the road in the future, but took me a couple minutes to figure out how to get them apart. So these are your 2 springs, and one is a 6-pound and one is a 4-pound. Now, based on the instructions here, the longer spring is your lighter weight spring. So if I just stand these 2 springs up and I actually look at them, this spring, I don't know if I can hold them equal. You can see which one is the longer spring, which is this one. This one, by the instructions, would be your 4-pound spring, based on what the instructions say, which is on the back here. As you can see, it illustrates the longer spring, and it states that longer spring length, 4-pound firing pin spring for sports shooting. The 6-pound firing pin spring, which is the shorter spring, is for says spring shorter spring length, self-defense. So, you know, the recommendation is not to go under the stock factory spring of 5.5 pounds if you're going to be using this pistol for a carry gun or self-defense. But there's the great thing about Glocks is this can always be changed out if it's something that doesn't provide a comfortable feel or run. So we're going to go with this 4-pound spring and just see what it does here. So, all right, so I have never done this before. I've only watched it on videos on the Glock store and so forth. So what I'm understanding is this spring cup that goes right here, these little pieces, these are two pieces, and basically you just have to compress the spring and pop those guys out. That frees up the spring and frees up your firing pin sleeve so that we can make the adjustments. Then we got to go in reverse order to put them back together. And by watching, I believe his last name is McGill, Larry McGill on the Glock channel, and I appreciate his expertise. We're going to use a little trick that he uses to put this back together, and it involves the slide, something that he kind of shows on his page there, and it seems to work for him, so we're going to go with that. He's got the experience in this, right? Anyway, so first things first, let's go ahead and get these spring cups out. So I'm going to compress that. I'll take the spring cup out, and those guys came out pretty easy. Here they are. They're very small, two little pieces, so don't want to lose those because I don't have any replacement parts for those, but it does free up the spring, obviously, and this is what it looks like without it. So we can take the spring off, and then we can also take off the firing pin sleeve. So I'm gonna stop this for a second, do a quick wipe down of everything, and get this little cleaned up. I'm not gonna put oil on it. You don't want a bunch of oil inside your firing pin sleeves and channels and all, but I want to clean it up and wipe it down good, and don't want you to have to deal with watching all that. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Got everything wiped down. You can see it was quite dirty, the firing pin sleeve and the firing pin and the spring cups here. Quite dirty. I also went into the actual firing pin channel and wiped down the innards and where the channel liner is in here. I didn't put any oil on this. It's all dry, but it was more just a wipe down to try and get any gunk or buildup that might be in there, and you can see how dirty that was. So it's been a long time coming for this one to get a little bit of cleanup down inside there as well, and make sure that it's that liner is as smooth and ungunked up as possible for function. So anyhow, there we go. All right, back to it. So let's get this thing done here. So we got the firing pin. Essentially, you put this sleeve on. It goes this way, so it sits like so. And then we've got to deal with our spring. And our spring, by the way, is longer than the factory 5.5 also. So everything's going in order with how Ghost Inc. Provided it. But so Larry McGill, see, he basically says take this, use your slide as a user block, and you can put this firing pin reverse order down right here, and it basically gives you if you put that hammer right there, hammer piece, it gives you a solid mount to put your spring on and compress it and install your spring cup. So we're going to do it that way. I don't know how hard or easy this is going to be, but we're going to give it the old go here. And I'm hoping, let me get my spring cups ready, because I've never done this before. So got one in one hand here, and we shall see how this goes. So I grab my spring, pull it down, put my spring cup right there. Okay, let that spring cup sit right there. I'm going to grab the other one, and I'm going to put it on the other side. I don't want to drop it, obviously. There it is. Okay, now I've got it on, as you can see. So what I want to do now is I want to look. I've been told you want to make sure that it lines up properly, that the seam doesn't line up with the end of the spring. You want to make sure that it doesn't overlay, and that the seam is in there in a manner so that it's separate from the end of the spring, so it can't dig in and separate. It looks pretty good. I think we're looking pretty good there. So anyhow, all right, we got that done. So what we're going to do is now we need to pop out the extractor, and essentially we're just going to take this extractor plunger piece out here. We're going to set that down, and then we need to pop out this guy here, and all you're supposed to have to really do is push in this hammer block spring, and your extractor is supposed to fall. Let's see if it actually works. And it doesn't, of course, never works as easy as the videos seem to work. So let's see if we can't pop them out here. And there it is. Okay, so we got the extractor out. I keep holding it off camera, I'm trying to show you, but we got the extractor out. This is the extractor spring and so forth. And now we should be able to just dump this firing pin block out with the spring. See if it'll come out for us. If it won't, I'm gonna have to grab it. And it won't, of course, either. So I feel like I'm gonna need to do a little bit of cleanup in there as well. There it is, there's your plunger and your spring, stock spring. I'm gonna pause this again and do a little cleanup real quick. Okay, well, this guy was filthy in that section too. Even though I'd clean this thing through and through, it's those cracks and crevices that you just don't get to on basic field cleaning and stripping. All right, let's get this done. I don't want this to have to be any longer than it needs to be, because the last one was 20-something minutes, and this one appears it's going to be a little bit of time too. So try and beat that one. So this is the stock setup. This is the actual reduced pin block spring. So all we do is we just take this out. I'm going to set this over here right quick. I'm going to do a quick wipe on this guy because I didn't do that before while I paused it, and just make sure that he is in good shape here. And he's dirty too. You can see how much is coming off. So you know, field stripping these things is great to clean them, but every once in a while, I mean, breaking this thing down and completely stripping is probably a good idea. All right. Anyhow, so here's our aftermarket spring, and basically you put it inside this cup here, and it's kind of free floating. So it's going to be kind of a trick to put in here. I don't want to install back. I don't want to turn it over because I'm afraid the spring might come out. So you want to make sure that it goes in. So I'm going to do it backwards per se, and basically get it in. Then I can turn it over, kind of seeing it's plunging like it should. So we're going to reinstall our extractor so it holds everything in place and it captures it. And there's videos on this, so I'm not going to worry about showing you that. I'm just going to go ahead and put it back in and see if we can't get this thing captured. So once you have it in there and it's captured, because your safety firing pin safety pin block is what holds in your actual extractor, and then they kind of hold each other together. So it is back installed, as you can see, and then all we gotta do now is put this back together and see where we're at. When you put your extractor pin back in, remember the spring side is always going to be top side. The plastic is on the outside. The metal faced hammer piece is what goes down. So you drop that into place. We're going to put our firing pin back in with our new spring and see how that goes. Man, that's always such an odd, it's almost a tight fit, but it's meant to be that way. And then putting this back on, I'm going to replace this back plate at some point, but putting this back on, all you do, it's very simple. You just kind of halfway get it started right here, and then you just take and you push down your firing pin sleeve enough to put my thumb on it, grab the whole slide like this, push down the back side of this firing pin sleeve enough to get this going in, and now it's in and it's captured. Then you just got to push down on your extractor there to get the rest of the way in, and you're going to hear a click. Once you get the extractor down, you get it over the top of the extractor. Then the idea is to push it the rest. Whoops, let me use this here a little bit thinner here, so I can push it over and get it over the top of that extractor a little better there. Now everything's captured, and then when you push in the rest of the way, when you hear a click, you're done. Boom, done. Everything's back together. Everything functions right. Firing pin drops when you push in that. You can see that that's together. So anyway, we're done. We're installed. So let's put this slide back together and get us a couple of trigger weight tests done, so we can close this video out and get you folks on your way. Ooh. Wall is still there, nice. It feels like it may have lightened up a little more. We'll see. It's hard to tell, you know, the human body can trick you sometimes. So here we are, we're at 0, and see if we can't do this again and see, remember what our readings were before. Okay, that one puts us right at just a shade over 4 pounds. Let's try another one. We'll do 3 again here. That one is just a hair over 3 3/4 pounds. I don't know if you can see that very good or not, right there. And then let's do one more. Give ourselves an average, unscientific though it may be. I'm not liking how I was getting that one. I couldn't rotate it right. It was causing me some grief there. Okay, and that one is just a shade under 3 3/4 pounds. So I'm trying to get it where it can focus, but just a shade under 3 3/4 pounds. So right there, we just took it from a 4 1/4 to 4 1/2 pounds by changing out the hammer spring, going to a 4-pound reduced hammer spring, and changing out the striker block spring. We have now dropped it to an average pull of somewhere in that a little over 3 3/4 pounds. So we're about 3 pounds 14 ounces after 3 pulls there. Again, non-scientific, non-controlled environment, but that's what I'm going with. All right, folks, I think that, man, this thing is on its way to being something really special, and I'm going to leave it like that. I think they're saying don't use this spring as a defensive carry, but man, that really makes that trigger feel nice. All your Glock safeties are still in place, as you can see. Everything still works perfectly. The firing block pins, firing pin safety, drop safety, and all that. It just gives you a much lighter feel, and then you still get your very nice reset and super nice feel now. Much better than before it. We call that 3 pounds 14 ounces. We've dropped this thing by almost 3 full pounds, and all we've done is some changes on the springs, and it gives us all these other parts for spare parts that are great to go in the spare part bucket for future use if ever needed. But all right, folks, that's part 2 in the series. We've got a lot more to come on this firearm, making this thing something much better than it is already, and creating a nicer piece. So anyhow, I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you like the video, like and subscribe. There's going to be another part coming up. There's going to be a little gap between that one because I've got to get some other parts coming. But like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in your comments, and I'll be happy to answer anything you have. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in.